Hey everybody, good to have you listening. Good to be inside your car, your house, your bathroom, listening whilst you're on the toilet or driving through the city. Or it's certainly just good to be in your head. How are you, Rob?
In your head.
Yes, you are in my head.
Yeah, the voice inside your head. Whose voice are you listening to?
Yeah, right.
Oh.
Maybe you should be listening to your own voice, your inner voice.
It sounds like the beginning of a
podcast
topic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as you wrote our show notes today, why don't we start off with that first one?
So yeah, this one's about, we're calling this one the reality of listening to your own voice, your own inner voice. So yeah, this is what I do a lot, is that taking time out to contemplate and ponder and reflect, right? So I know that all of us have a lot of internal dialogue going on. In fact, there's mind chatter, if you're aware of it, there's mind chatter going on all the time, okay? And a lot of it is just crap. A lot of it's just superfluous conversational stuff. But we have this inner voice, which I just had a little flash of inspiration. Realization, yeah. There's a book called The Untethered Soul, right? By, can you look that up?
I'll look that up. Good. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. But it talks basically about recognizing your inner voice and then who's actually listening to that voice. So in other words, there's got to be a witness or an observer listening to that voice, right? So if someone's talking to you outside of yourself, another person, you obviously are hearing that voice. But what about who's actually listening to your inner voice? So that's just something to kind of ponder and think about right there. But I know...
is this it?
Yeah, that's the one, of course.
Soul, the journey beyond yourself.
Yeah. I highly recommend reading that book.
Well, so does Deepak. Funny... He writes, read this book carefully and you'll get more than a glimpse of eternity. Deepak Chopra. Thank you, Deepak.
And yeah, thank you. But the journey beyond yourself. So yeah, that's just interesting. It's always good to get curious about, okay, so you've got this internal voice going on. And that's why contemplation and meditation is so important, and becoming the witness, so to speak, of your own thoughts. But yeah, there is an inner voice going on, and it's about recognizing that voice and listening to it, and listening to the wisdom of your own inner voice, your intuition, your I call it kind of your inner wisdom, your all-knowing self. So I wonder how many people out there actually take the time, and you can do this in moments during the day when you're just contemplating. But I'm talking about the quality thoughts. You get past all the, and we're going to talk about this as well. We're going to unpack this a little bit again, the programming, right? So that internal dialogue that's sort of on automatic program that is running sort of behind the scenes, if you like, that's always constantly there, that's not productive and maybe not positive, okay? So there's a difference between having that mind chatter that is productive, resourceful, and coming from a deeper, more centered place, and then having these crazy, bullshit, destructive voices. So, yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Steve? On the whole,
do you think that's about taking time to reflect and ponder and contemplate, or is that not necessary?
I think it's necessary because we're going to talk more about the busyness culture that we live in, the always being busy. So often we can't interrupt those thoughts. We have so much going on in our busy lives that we don't have just time to just breathe and go, okay, and to sit quietly. And this word keeps coming up for me is just beingness. We're human beings, right? So an analogy I give is in order to have music, right, you have these notes, but there's got to be space in between the notes to create. That's actually where the music's created. You can't just have one long note that goes on forever. You've got to have the space in between to create the harmony.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Even if you use multiple notes without gap space and ability for a note to ease off and dissipate, you actually don't have the music, because there's meaning in the sound as well as there is in the lack of sound.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's how the lack of sound punctuates the sound.
Precisely.
That gives us that understanding, that feeling.
Yeah. And I think we've all had moments of clarity and realizations or aha moments. These often come at times when we're given space and we're in almost there's a space for that thought or feeling or intuitive guidance comes and it speaks to us. And that voice within, that's when I talk about, say, intuition or guidance, it's very subtle. It's not often a loud, blaring voice, which often more the mind chatter or egoic sort of mind dialogue that goes on in our heads incessantly, right? So
I think it can be both. I think you're right, though. It's not often loud. I think it is if it has to be. Yeah.
You mean like that shouting? Or tell me more about what you're thinking there.
Some people will hear a voice that is so authentically them, but it comes with an absolute peace and quiet, like I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
That quiet inner voice that's there if you listen. And I think sometimes in emergencies, it comes with such great clarity and strength, it blocks out the other chatter to be of assistance to you.
Right, yeah, okay.
Now, that's not to say every loud voice you hear in your head is necessarily the ones that should rule your life. That's what psychotic medication's for.
Yeah.
We're really talking about an inner understanding and knowing. I think this goes beyond a voice that you hear mentally. It's something that you experience fully.
Yeah.
As a guidance
That's
that we
right.
choose to interpret as a meaning and make it part of that understanding that we have in our brain that often interprets sound or audio as a voice. But when we get that understanding that inner standing,
right. Yeah.
it often will filter through the capacity of our mental, our brain, to give us an understanding that we contextualize and put into almost, we could write it down, we could put it into words.
Sure.
But that inner communication doesn't start as words. It starts as feeling. It starts as an understanding, which we filter through this apparatus around our eyes, called our brain, and stick it out and go, I think what that means is this. I could also reword it as this. And it basically means the same thing if I reword it as that. That's where it gets through the human filter, and it could become something you type out or you interpret into an action in that moment. But either way, you know what its intention was, and it passes through our brain, and we go, well, that's a voice. But before it passed through our brain, it wasn't a voice, it was an understanding.
Right, yeah.
I think that's how you differentiate between someone on psychotic meds to get rid of the voices.
Yeah.
Because it's not one of those.
Yeah, I mean, because you've got this internal relationship going on with self anyway, right? As you, whether you're making decisions or you're going about your day, etc., you've always got this self relationship going on with who am I and the thought process, and it's almost like we convert the feelings and thoughts into some sort of dialogues to give them meaning and expression. We're kind of really getting into the nitty-gritty, which I'm not an expert by any means on how the human brain and how the whole thought and structure process of creating words and dialogue actually happens, but we do it, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's okay to speak from the heart, as you are, as I am. And we just like to remind listeners that we're not doctors, and please keep taking medications.
Yeah. But yeah, I think often in society we're often, this is something I want to bring up about the busyness. We're often expected to do more, and in order to be more, right? Success is measured on all these different levels, whether it's finances, whether it's the job you have, whether it's the title you have. It's always this more line of programming or thinking. And it comes down to, once again, like, whose voice are you listening to? And I have this sort of, this is what I think, is that no matter how much you accumulate, no matter I'll throw in a quote here. Okay, so happiness doesn't start with a relationship, a vacation, a job, or money. It starts with our thinking and what we tell ourselves every day. I think that's really profound. Right?
And that's really... And well, further to that point, you could be on vacation and be very unhappy.
True.
As I've mentioned in one of our earlier episodes.
Yeah. And that was courtesy, thank you to Mark and Angel Hacklife, which they've got an amazing website and Facebook page. And they have practical tips for everyday living. So, but what I'm getting from that is that we seem to externalize our happiness a lot, right? And what we think about ourselves in terms of all the societal expectations, and then it's questioning, well, whose voice you're listening to. Once again, is it society's voice? Is it the measure of what other people's expectations are? And then it comes back to going back within and trusting your own inner voice and going, well, am I really listening to what I really want? And then getting past all that external noise and voice and going, hang on, what do I really want? And bringing it back in. So, and this whole culture of being busy, I often find that busyness is often, I'm calling it like a modern society sickness.
Right, yeah.
Right?
I've got to talk to that.
Yeah.
Not that long ago, I remember taking some dry cleaning into a place in One Tree Hill. Great little place there on Rafferty Road. Shout out to them. And the couple that run the business are a very busy pair of people. And they dry clean and they do alterations and that kind of thing. And I was there to get a couple of things done. And she goes, how are you? Yeah, I'm good, thanks. And are you busy? And I just did that default thing of going, yep, I'm busy, because that's what we always say. And I went, yeah, I'm busy. And she went, oh, better to be busy. And then took my money and wrote down on the docket and come back on Thursday. And as I walked out, it sort of occurred to me, oh, actually, it's not better to be busy, because often busyness, a certain kind of busyness, is associated with a certain kind of stress. And that busyness is, it's not that you can not be busy. It's not that you can always have to have stress with busyness. You can have really positive busyness. But often we associate busyness with stress and having a long to-do list of things to get done. And people will say to you, like she did, well, better to be busy, because busy in our programmed mind that we stop reassessing and thinking about our meanings, busyness means we have meaning. And I think we're often afraid to stop being busy, to have those pauses between the musical notes, right? Like you said, and find the meaning in the pauses. And I now think that not being busy, but still having a great life, means you've mastered your busyness. You might compartmentalize your busyness to certain times of the day. You might still have many moments of busyness, but to be able to not always be on the go, busy, is heaps better. To not always be on the go, to be able to have times and stretches of peace and a sense of, hey, I'm not busy right now. That's success, because that means you've sorted that shit. You've actually mastered that stuff. You've found a system. You've valued your time alone. You've figured out that it's important to find your inner peace time. To drive without a 10-point to-do list today means that's successful. So when people go, well, a busy man's a successful man, rethink that. Yeah. A busy man, a successful man, isn't someone who's ruled by his to-do list and his busyness. A successful man has mastered that. Or woman. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think a lot of our listeners can relate to that, to just this whole program of being busy. And it's an easy trap to get into, because once again, we there are so many demands on our time. But I always come back to balance, right? So you see balance in nature. You see it. I mean, you just got to. I always love the analogy of the ebb and flow of the tides, right? The tide's not always full. It needs time to ebb. And the same, and there are peaks and troughs. You look at a wave. And so we get caught in this trap where we feel like we always need to be on, right? And rest, relaxation, downtime is just as important in any process that you can think of. But it's almost as life is speeding up and technology is speeding up. This modern life where we're just always on. We talked about the whole with technology and being connected 24/7, right? We're never actually disconnecting from it. Unless we take the time, unless we're disciplined about that. And I think so much of our dis-ease and stress comes from those pressures, and we're not machines. We're human, biological. As we said before, we're spiritual beings having this physical experience. But you're
my favorite.
Yeah, at a deep level, your body is going through processes and things beyond you consciously can actually think of. There's this innate body wisdom going on and processes, and it needs recovery, it needs nurturing, and it needs those things in order to thrive. And when you're on the edge of stress and you go past it, that's when you start getting sick, right? The body can no longer, it's telling you get this sort of biofeedback. But, so out of this, obviously, there's a whole industry of wellness, right, that's sprung forth to keep this human machine operating. And there's a huge industry of modern medicine that often, I believe, just treats the symptoms and masks the actual real root causes of why you're feeling dis-ease and sick in the first place.
Yeah.
And that comes back down to listening, like with your inner voice, listening to your body, listening to your inner wisdom. And I think a lot of, this is just my belief anyway, I'm not an expert, but a lot of the anxiousness in the world, the sort of mental illnesses often could be stemmed from, on some sort of level, we don't feel worthy, we feel insignificant, we don't measure up on some sort of level. Our power has been diminished. We're not connected to our true, authentic nature, and we get caught up in the mind program. And the mind is just so powerful. And this is something which I believe is true: is that we've all got things going on in our life, and we're all sort of waging this internal war in our minds. And the battlefield is actually in the mind, right? So. And that comes back down to, once again, this whole thing of your inner dialogue, your mind chatter, what you're really thinking about. And it comes back down to that quote, actually. What we are thinking and what you tell ourselves every day is actually creating your reality and how you feel. And, so it's come sort of full circle on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can hear the cops in the background.
Come here, we can do,
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Just sort of letting that digest.
So you're talking about the human machine.
But
I think you also mentioned masking symptoms, right?
Yeah.
Because I think there's a really interesting thing that goes on with some medications that mask symptoms that I think people who like to take a holistic view of the world are often very negative about medications. And I can understand that because I've long understood the viewpoint of alternative health and that sort of thing. But where I think it's really interesting is sometimes medications give people a bit of breathing space from the shit they've got themselves into. So if something masks the symptoms, masks the, you're experiencing a symptom, but it masks it and stops you from feeling it, and you get relief, you have to be real with yourself and say, this medication hasn't actually dealt with the cause, but my goodness, I'm grateful for that relief. And that's the moment where you go, thank goodness for the relief. I can now have the headspace to create myself out of this problem, use my creative being powers to put in place clear goals to improve XYZ that caused me to have this medication, to change my health, well-being, fitness, whatever, improve my steps. I mean, if you were someone who couldn't mobilize or move easily, and it was really important to get up and be active, but the medication gave you the ability to mask some of that pain so that you could, the sensible person finds balance in that and gets out and gets active. The crazy person starts doing marathons straight away, which is going too far the other extreme, because the body isn't really necessarily ready for that. But I think it's about when you have those masks in place, they can be huge relief, and that's the view of balance. And the view of balance is use that for what's good, take a balanced approach, and then take that approach of I'm going to get off these medications, I'm going to work towards it, as opposed to what I see people in the alternative health industry doing, which is just blanket ban on, all drugs are bad. And that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, this brings up a lot of things.
It's all about balance, man.
It is about balance, obviously. I mean, always going to have a for and against any kind of idea and way of life. It's a bit like diets, right? One diet versus another diet. Okay, so you've got modern
Buckle
medicine,
in,
pharmaceutical medicine versus holistic, natural, organic ways of dealing with whatever illness or disease you have got. So yeah, but it's about obviously doing your research, educating yourself and learning and seeing both sides, because I'm sure
do you have a particular example in mind? Maybe
I'm going to get to that. Yeah, we will get to that. This is
like I say, buckle in, everyone. Here we go. We're about to debunk the debunkers.
Debunk the debunkers. Yeah. Where was I going with this? Yeah, I take your point with what you were saying there. Absolutely. I guess I've always come from the point of view is, why do you need to be taking this medicine that's been manufactured with maybe the wrong stuff or the bad stuff or things that are not sort of naturally occurring?
Yeah.
And
because it's the goal not to need medicine, right?
Yeah, it is the goal. And I mean, the body health, it's just so complex. So there are people that are going through stuff that have tried everything under the sun to get better. And I always say health, wellness is just the number one thing.
And by the way, I don't think we're at all saying to anyone who has that as part of their life that it's a bad thing. I mean, we're really happy for anyone who's on life-saving medications that keeps them alive.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah. But I guess it comes back to, and this comes back to trusting your own inner voice and your own inner wisdom. Is this the right thing for me? And is this really working? And is this healing me? And if it's not, then it's time to reassess, and it's time to question what you're doing and taking, once again, I think what I'm getting at is often we give the responsibility over to someone else or something else in order to save us, to fix us, etc., etc. And there's nothing wrong with getting help, but it comes back to,
look, I think it's fair to say that there are a number of conditions that are self-inflicted.
Sure.
Right? Things that people have done through a number of behaviours that were a choice, ultimately hard to accept, but a choice perhaps of overconsumption or, they've done something which has led them through lifestyle choices to need a medication.
Yep.
I think go ahead, take that medication to help you out. But don't stay on it forever is the message that we're talking about, because this is where people in the alternative health industry would say all medications are bad.
Yep.
And I think the balanced approach is use for a period with balance and with the intention of helping yourself get off that medication.
And I mean, listen, there's a lot of misinformation out there, so it's really hard to know what to believe. And and you're right. The alternative medicine are obviously going to be anti the pharmaceutical and vice versa, and it just creates
nuts. It's just as
division,
just as much as it's nuts for the pharmaceutical to just be absolutely anti-natural. That makes no sense either.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, when you think of, I mean, obviously there's natural medicine that's been around since discovering, and then obviously it's evolved into creating the pharmaceutical side. But as I say, I'm no expert of that. What I think what I really want to get to is just that I think everyone at a deep level just wants to be healthy and happy on all levels, and however you can get there, and whatever means, and if it works, then that's great, right? Because that means you have a quality of life, that means you have an experience where you're actually living and you're vibrant and you're alive. Yeah. So,
well, sometimes that means leaving the program.
Leaving the program. Yes, indeed.
I think that's where we're up to, isn't it?
Indeed.
Because you find yourself in a situation where sometimes you've had enough of the things that you've been repeating over and over and over again, and a change is really necessary. And you might even have an out point where you can make that change. But people would accuse you, I think in Western society, of how could you retire early? How could you go buy a cheaper house somewhere and alleviate yourself from the stresses of a heavy mortgage? How could you not want to stay and aim for the better suburb and the higher paid job and be the career man that, because you're worried about retirement and all kinds of stresses that are placed in front of you as legitimate reasons to hang on in there. But so many people are stuck in a high mortgage situation, paying for a home they never spend any time in because they're working somewhere else. And I think there comes a point where the balanced lifestyle choice is actually not being caught up in that stress ball, constantly rolling forward, trying to earn money to pay for a mortgage that you don't necessarily or can't necessarily even enjoy because you're never there. So I think we have moments in our lives where we can pick choices that are about our peace of mind, be it a less stressful job, be it letting go of the kind of work you do to pay for the high-cost environment you set up for yourself, but rather go get a cheaper $10,000, $15,000 car instead of a brand new one, and actually find peace of mind in a home maybe where you get more time for yourself and you can enjoy those gaps between the notes instead of the constant, heavy metal roll-on of consistent, never-ending stresses. And I think that's something that takes a bit of bravery and courage to do.
Absolutely.
And there's pushback too from people who say to you, "Why would you do that? Oh my God! Well, you've got to live in the best suburb and the best place, and hey, if that's not working for you, go find another part of the country you live in and take some time out. Yeah, even if just for a year or two."
You're speaking my language.
Yeah, man. I'm speaking mine too right now.
And that comes back down to listening to your voice and not someone else's voice, right? Because it's your life. You're the one having the experience. Yeah. Right?
We often forget that the cost of stress, we go, I'm going to stay here with the stress because the job I'm in is earning such good money. We often forget that the cost of stress might be the cost of not making it past next Tuesday, because some people are just right up at the edge of a catastrophic health event and they don't know it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's look, it's a struggle, right? It's a struggle to listen to that inner voice and doing what's right for you, and then listening to those external voices that tell you what you should be doing and why. And yeah, deprogramming yourself from that, because that's how it is, or that's how it's always been, or that's what other people do, or that's just the way society's structured.
That's what you're expected to live like?
Yeah. I mean, it's all around you when you really take a close look.
Yeah.
And you take a step back, and you can just talk to people, and if you can get past the external presentation and the hey, I'm great, I'm busy, etc. Well, what's really going on behind the scenes, and how are you really feeling about where you are in life? And you'll be surprised. I think most people have the same worries, fears, insecurities, things going on, and they're all trying to do their best to deal with it and manage it the way they can, right? And I know in my life, I've always taken that time to ponder and contemplate, and to really and step within myself and go, okay, so how can I not do better, but how can I evolve and grow from any experience? So and learn and grow, and the person who's in that point where they recognize and are aware that the job is stressing them, maybe slowly killing them on some level, right? And they're literally not coming from a place of passion, then it's that crossroads in the on the road. Which path are you going to take now? Are you just going to keep going down that path of working your ass off, or are you going to start doing things for you? And it may mean sacrifice, it may mean downgrading, right? Because people love buying new shit and having the latest stuff, and that we're talking about this all the time. The consumeristic society. Yeah,
everyone wants that new Audi RS4.
Yeah, or R8. I wouldn't mind the R8 myself. Yeah.
But you're often better off with the Mazda CX-7.
Yeah, and I'm saying everyone is aligned to this, because there are definitely people that don't fall into this category. You don't know what the hell you're going on about, going, hey, we live a simple life. And I don't know, I read somewhere that, I can't remember the exact results. This is one of those cases where you want to pull it up, but it was something about
what is it?
You're lucky if it was all to do with percentages. If you earn a certain amount of money, you're in the lucky basket, because only 15% of the world's population earn above this sort of level, or have decent clothing and power and access to but it was interesting, because it's a reality check, and you go, wow, okay, so I am within that percentage because I earned that and I have these things. So if you can feel good about that and grateful, then that's a good thing. Not so good for the people who are going without, but once again, how do you measure happiness, really? We all have our own barometers and measures, and but I feel that finding true happiness and true worth and true meaning in life is totally not dependent on how much you make, how much money you make, what outside achievements you have, what material possessions. I think it's a bottomless pit, and whether you need to go down that path to figure that out is your journey. But and that comes back to listening to your own voice and doing what is right for you.
Yeah. Why don't you hit us with that quote you're talking about earlier that you were reading to me?
Which one was that? We did
this one here, Mark and Angel Life Hack, but it's not the one you mentioned before. I think this is different, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, this is a different. Yeah, this is another one from Mark and Angel Hack Life, who, by the way, helped me so much when I was going through tough times. And
Hack Life, not Life Hack.
Hack Life.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah. So, this goes back to going back to the ups and downs in life, how life flows, and there are high moments and low moments. So life isn't about a single moment of great triumph and attainment. It's about the trials and errors that get you there. The blood, sweat, and tears. The small, inconsequential things you do every day. It all matters in the end. Every step, every regret, every decision, and every affliction.
Yeah. Ah, that's
like
good.
That.
Yeah, that's really good. I want to take in one aspect of that. It all matters in the end. Every step, every regret, every decision, and every affliction. So one of the realizations I've had with talking about the topic of stress and people wanting to get out of a stressful situation and re-look at and review where they're at in life and why what they do doesn't, speak to their soul. It doesn't make their heart sing. And I hope our future episode with Jackie, who has done amazing midlife crisis retreats for people, which as I understand it at this point is, and she'll correct if I'm wrong, but it's really helped people through these kinds of decisions where you spend a long time evaluating or doing one thing and realize it's actually not your soul's purpose.
Yeah.
And you have a midlife crisis, not for the same reasons people did in the 1960s and 70s, but for that real modern thing of we actually have in this time the ability to fulfill and realize our creative power. And we say to ourselves, but we're running out of time. Let's get on and do it.
Yeah. She calls it being a square peg in a round hole most of her life until she...
Well, to that end, what I want to say about people who are thinking of bailing on the stressful scenario they're in and moving to the country, before you do that, and I think this is the flip side of this adds balance to that, because in everything there's two sides to the story.
Yeah.
And we look at the one painful side and go, the stress is so high.
I just want out of here.
I just want out.
Yeah, just...
And what I think we forget is, like any relationship with anything, with a person or with a job or with a situation, if we don't find in ourselves the answer to the problem, we're doomed to repeat it.
Sure.
Right? So I look at that situation and go, by all means, get out, but find within yourself what it is that if you improved that lacking, missing thing, you wouldn't have the stress that you have here.
Yeah.
So if you're, I don't know if I can find a really basic analogy, but if your job was to, you worked in a textile factory and there was, one week you did triangles and in other weeks you did circles, okay?
Yeah.
And you're really good at cutting the triangles, but you're really not so good at cutting the circles. And you just say, bugger this.
Damn it, I'm over it.
I want out. It's circle week again.
What about those rectangles, man?
Rectangles are good, right? The rectangles are they're a good week. Not as good as triangles, to be fair, but circles, God, circles are so shit. And here comes circle week. And you're making the worst circles in the world, and you go, that's it.
That's it.
The
I'm
stress
done.
is so high, I'm out. Well, look, you may find yourself in a new position in the future where you've got to cut circles again.
Yeah, it'll just be exclusively circles and maybe a few...
oblongs. Parabolas.
Yeah.
Other
trapezoids. Is that
other circular-like issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe sometimes the lesson that's in it needs to be faced.
Yeah.
And at least you may not become good at cutting circles, but it would be good if you could just be competent at it. Because maybe your spiritual being that's here to have a physical experience has said, if I could just master circles. And because of that, if you leave the factory because of circle week, then some other thing in your life is going to throw up circles and you go, I've never mastered this. So sometimes it's about looking at your challenges and facing it.
Yep.
I mean, for some people who hate doing spreadsheets, they want to leave the job because spreadsheet week comes up.
Yeah.
Hey, man, maybe just get good with spreadsheets. Just try it once. Go get a little class in spreadsheets. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, good good story and good analogy. Because I think sometimes we have this romantic notion that if we just quit the job, change country, do this, etc., then we live happily ever after. But guess what, right? Life goes on, problems come up, challenges arise, etc. Sometimes we all have that romantic idea of just moving to a different country and escaping our 9 to 5 and we watch YouTube. I've caught myself doing this. Watch YouTube videos and seeing, this is my dream life in Vietnam or in wherever, and you can see this couple and they're just having this amazing time, and it's all, that's great, but how do you fund that? What's the reality of the situation? What are you escaping? What's the day-to-day mechanics and routines, and what's all you don't see that. You just see all the good parts of that scenario, so to speak.
Well, you see a curated existence. Just like the last photo you put up on Facebook that was just you having a great time with friends out having a few drinks.
Yeah.
And anyone looking at that photo
goes, wow, I want that.
That's all that Bob does.
Yeah. And
that's all that Cherie does. She just drinks.
Yeah.
Actually, Cherie's a heavy drinker. But you might think that Bob and Cherie just only have a fun time, and that's the reality is not that at all.
Yeah. And then we feel frustrated and because we're not living that life. But the reality is obviously that it's not like that. And it comes back to that quote where it's the totality of the experience, the ups and downs, the good and the bad. It's all of it. And it's learning to navigate and life is amazing and then it's awful. Did I do that quote? I don't think I did do that quote, did I?
I think you might have.
Did I say? Yeah.
Are you talking about the Charles Eisenstein?
No. This is a different one. Yeah. But
I'll just say it again. I mean, look, if it's worth hearing once, it's worth hearing twice.
Yeah. I mean, this is just another amazing quote. It's a quote kind of day, isn't it?
I hope I can read that last one.
Yeah, you can read that last one.
Thanks.
But actually, this comes from my blog that it's going to come out this week.
Ladies and gentlemen, check out Rob's blog on realityhub.love. That's realityhub.love. Go to Rob's blog. They get huge amounts of hits. People are retweeting them or re-Facebooking them.
I don't know, but
it's amazing. It's really getting through to people.
If it's resonating with people, then that's amazing, right? Yeah, that's nice. Cool. That's very cool. This one's called The True Reality of Life. And so life is amazing and then it's awful. And then it's amazing again. And in between the amazing and awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. This is from L.R. Nost. She's an author. Mm-hmm. Amazing. And that's just a small excerpt, but these are words to live by. We have highs, we have lows, but in between, it's... A friend of mine calls it is it trudgery? Is that the right?
Drudgery, I think.
Drudgery, yeah.
Yeah.
Trudge is something else.
A trudgeon is something you get beaten over the head with.
Yeah, that can
and
be
drudgery
painful.
Is something that you live with, yeah.
Even the word drudgery conjures up this. The drudgery. But sometimes it is. Sometimes life is like walking in mud or thick sand and you can barely move. It's just hard going, right? But that strengthens you as well, and it's all part of being human, right?
Yeah.
So she goes on to say, breathe in the amazing, hold on through the awful, and relax and exhale during the ordinary. That's just living, heartbreaking, soul-healing, amazing and awful, ordinary life, and it's breathtakingly beautiful. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I just realised it's a truncheon. Not a trudgeon. Mate, that's deep.
Yeah.
Can you just read that one more time in one go? And I won't interrupt you. That one that you just did.
The last part?
No, from the top of it.
Yeah. So, life is amazing, and then it's awful, and then it's amazing again. And in between the amazing and awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. Breathe in the amazing, hold on through the awful, and relax and exhale during the ordinary. That's just living heartbreaking, soul-healing, amazing, awful, ordinary life. And it's breathtakingly beautiful.
Oh, that's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, let's hit these other two before we pull it into an end, eh? There's this other thing you wrote here. Happiness doesn't start with a relationship.
I think we quoted that. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, just the things that we. Yeah. So.
All right, then give me the Charles Eisenstein one.
Ah, yes.
Okay.
This is a quote. This is a quote podcast. This
is the quote. Quote cast of the day.
Quote cast of the day. So yeah, this popped up and this really resonated with me about how being human and how we're really just the basic needs, are they really being met? Okay. So he goes on to say,
I'm going to hit this one.
Yeah, he goes on to say,
a multiplicity of basic human needs go chronically, tragically unmet in modern society. These include the need to express one's gifts and do meaningful work, the need to love and be loved, the need to be truly seen and heard, and to see and hear other people, the need for connection to nature, the need to play, explore, and have adventures, the need for emotional intimacy, the need to serve something larger than oneself, and the need, sometimes, to do absolutely nothing and just be. It's from Charles Eisenstein.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah,
thanks for letting me read that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that last bit, when people can cringe with that, to do nothing and just be. What do you mean just do nothing? How do you just do nothing?
Well, the lady at the dry cleaning store does not know how to do nothing.
Yeah.
Some
people
tune
out,
yeah.
to rest.
Better to be busy. Here's your docket.
It can freak people out. And I tell you something, it can be the most revealing, the most amazing place to be, because you allow yourself to just sink into yourself, and you discover things about yourself that you wouldn't otherwise, because it's, once again, it's the balance, right? It's just the dualistic nature of reality. So there's a flip side to everything, and when society will tell you to do more, to just be more and work harder and do all that sort of stuff, but when you fall back into being, wow, it's where you find some magic and wisdom. And I mean, you can't, there's that saying, allow the field to lie fallow. You can't just keep harvesting from the soil. You've got to allow the soil to regenerate and replenish and to support new growth. And that's why we have seasons as well, right? That's why nature goes into that autumnal fall mode to replenish and to contemplate. And then hopefully, as a human being, to grow and to learn and go, okay, yeah, and on to the next, whatever that may be.
Well, on that note, Rob, I think it's time for our end credit music.
Great.
With thanks to all our listeners and friends of the show.
Thanks to all the quotes as well, and the people that have written them and given us their inspiration.
Yeah. And shout out to Marwin Celerio. Next episode, we've got him coming on with a really cool friend of ours who's a personal trainer and actor, and it's an episode we recorded quite some time ago.
Yeah.
So we didn't really let him talk at times. We talked over the top of him occasionally, but
we were very enthusiastic.
We were
there
enthusiastic.
was an amazing energy.
Just to have him in the room was incredible.
In that environment,
yeah.
And hopefully that will translate into the podcast.
Yeah. Now, we've said it before, we've got some guests coming up, and Marwin's going to be the first one, and we've got some other fantastic guests coming as well. So stay tuned, and we'll talk to you in person soon if you contact us through our Instagram, Facebook, or website. You can listen to these podcasts on our website, or as you probably are listening in an iDevice, iPhone or Android. Hope you're enjoying it. If you've got any feedback or suggestions for the show, let us know. We'll be in touch with you soon.
Thanks, everyone.